She had this method, of teaching her own children. What'd she do? Her daughters were only allowed to get A's in school. They didn't get an A, so they weren't allowed to leave the house. They weren't allowed to go see their friends. They had to stay home. If you don't get an A, then anything less than A is unacceptable. She says that her 7-year-old daughter Lulu learned how to play the piano, but she didn't like it. And so she told her piano, "You playing the piano. If you don't finish doing all your notes, you're going to lose your dollhouse." So imagine the kid is 7 years old. Imagine what kind of fright that she has losing her dollhouse. It's like so she had to do all her notes and nothing to talk about. So of course that's not the Jewish way. Kid has to get an A in every single subject. That's not the Jewish way. Rabbi Shachat, actually from the yeshiva, he once wrote a letter to the Rebbe. He was or even like the Shagasaria, or even like the Alter Rebbe. I'm never going to become as great a genius as them. People in our generation are much greater than me, so why should I even bother? And they responded to him that it doesn't say in the Torah a person was created to become a genius. A person was created to serve Hashem. And therefore you don't have to become a genius. You don't have to know, you don't have to excel. There's no mitzvah to. It's her opinion that you have to get an A in every subject is not, and to frighten the kids until they, or take away things in order to get them to be that way, it's wrong. It's not our way. But at the same time, to give in and just to not challenge themselves. We want them to challenge themselves. So the question is, how do we educate our children to win? We don't want to do to follow her crazy way, but we want them to win. So what do? There is something that Yiddishkeit says that we learn from the menorah. Yiddishkeit doesn't believe in any holy number. There's no such thing as a kid has to get an A in every. It's not a holy number. 90 is not a holy number. Even a 70 is not a holy number. The number you want the kid to get is you want the kid to make an effort. You want the kid to challenge himself. So how do you make that happen? So we learned this from the menorah. The menorah is a very unique thing in the menorah. It's not like we find something in the menorah that we don't find by any other mitzvah. Every other mitzvah, either do the mitzvah, you don't do the mitzvah. There's nothing in between. But the menorah, we find the way to do the mitzvah of the menorah, it's gradual. Imagine someone comes to shul and they bring their tefillin bag and they only bring their arm tefillin, not their head tefillin. They put on their arm tefillin and they come to shul and someone says to them, "Hey, why don't you wear the head tefillin? Is your head tefillin broken? We have another one in the shul you could borrow." No, I'm gradually moving into this thing. I don't want to take everything at once. So this week I'm doing arm tefillin. Next week I'm going to live on a higher level and I'll have the head tefillin. Or imagine someone comes to shul. "Oh, I'm up to lulav right now. Throughout Sukkot, and I'm going to bring an esrog, I'm going to get the hadassim, get the aravis. I'm going to work my way up slowly and get into the mitzvah." We don't do that. Either you're doing the mitzvah of an esrog or you're not. Either you're putting on tefillin or you're not. We don't have this thing of gradually moving into it. And here, by the mitzvah of the menorah, it's unique. The Torah says, no, don't do the whole thing at once. Only on the last day of Hanukkah, then you should light the whole menorah. But throughout Hanukkah, just do one candle, and each day add another candle. What the Torah is telling us with this is that there's a way to transform darkness into light, to effect change. And the way is not, the purpose of lighting the menorah is not to just commemorate this amazing thing that happened with this miracle. It's not just to commemorate this amazing thing that happened with the Chashmonayim. The purpose of this is that we should be Chashmonayim. And what should we do? What do they have that we're supposed to get from them? And it really makes sense. When they first lit the menorah in 1978, President Carter, he was wondering, "Hey, why did you only light 4 candles the 4th night of Hanukkah?" So he asked Rabbi Shem Tov, "Why only 4 candles?" Rabbi Shem Tov was like, so they basically lit all the entire menorah, and because the president asked. And the next day, the Rebbe said to one of the secretaries, "I expected more Jewish pride from Rabbi Shem Tov." But anyways, his question is a good question. How come the menorah is lit in this gradual way, and we don't do the whole thing at once? And the answer is that the Torah is giving us a recipe of how to accomplish what the menorah is meant to accomplish. What's the menorah meant to accomplish? To transform darkness into light, to help us to go out of our limitations and to help us become who we need to be. We learn that from the menorah and the way the menorah is lit. There was a great tzaddik whose name was Rabbi Yisrael of Rizhin. Each of his children became tzaddikim in their own right, rebbes in their own right. When he passed away, all the children were arguing about who was going to get his tefillin. He had one child that he named Rabbi Moshe Levin. He wanted the tefillin. He had another child that became the Sadigerer Rebbe. He wanted the tefillin. So how are they going to decide who was going to get the tefillin? Especially because they weren't just his tefillin. He inherited his tefillin from the Zitcha Maggid, the student of the Bais. They decided they're going to do this. Everyone's going to put on a piece of paper what they're willing, how much of their father's estate they're willing to give up to get the tefillin. Whoever is willing to give up the most will get the tefillin. So everyone wrote in the envelope what they're willing to give up, how much, what percentage, what they're willing to give up. And then, as this method is being discussed and everyone's writing down they changed their mind. They said, we'll just make a raffle. Forget about giving up stuff, we'll just make a raffle. And the oldest brother, the Sadigerer Rebbe, he was very surprised that he didn't merit to get these tefillin. His younger brother, Rabbi Moshe Levin, he got the tefillin. But then he saw the envelope of his brother. What does his brother's envelope say? I'll give it all away. Give it my father's tefillin. Interesting thing, he actually didn't wear those tefillin for many years. What happened was that the chassidim of the Sadigerer Rebbe, they saw how much their Rebbe wanted the tefillin. So one day they came to him with a confession. We know how much you wanted those tefillin, so we actually went to your brother and we unsewed the tefillin. We took out the scrolls, and we were holding on to them for a long time. We don't actually know what to do with them because we don't know how to tell this to you, but we have them. Here you go. So he told them, we're going now. We're going, and he traveled immediately to visit his brother, the Mesha, and he asked his brother about the tefillin, about the maggid's tefillin. Does he use the maggid's tefillin? And his brother said, I don't use the maggid's tefillin. Every time I pick them up and I feel I don't deserve them. And his brother said to him, it's not that you don't deserve them. It's that you deserve the maggid's tefillin, and these are not the maggid's tefillin. He gave him the parshas, and then he started wearing those tefillin. So there's something that's accomplished by sacrifice. He was willing to give up everything, get those tefillin, and he merited to have those tefillin. This passage Talmud that we say after completing a book of Talmud. The passage we say is, they work, meaning everyone else in the world works, get rewarded. We work and we do get rewarded. Now, what does that mean? Anyone who works, let's say a tailor works, they make suits and they get paid. Anyone who works, you do Uber, you get paid. When we say they work and don't get paid, maybe they don't get a spiritual reward, we get a spiritual reward. But what do we mean when we say they work and they don't get paid? We work and we do get paid. So the Chafetz Chaim gives an amazing answer. By the way, I just saw this today. You know why the Chafetz Chaim is so popular? The Rebbe once said the reason why the Chafetz Chaim's books are so popular and the whole world learns the Chafetz Chaim, everyone learns the Chafetz Chaim, is because the stand to see another Jew be insulted Lashon Hara about another Jew. Since the Chafetz Chaim could not stand to see someone speak Lashon Hara about another Jew. Anyway, so the Chafetz Chaim gives the following parable. Chafetz Chaim says that there was a guy walking into a suit store, and he sees one suit is $1,000, one suit's $1,500, and he sees there's one suit in the corner, and this suit is $25,000. He asked the manager, why is this suit so expensive? He looks at the suit, and this suit is like very weird. It's the neck is crazy, and the buttons are in the wrong place, and the whole suit is one sleeve is longer than the other. So if the Chafetz Chaim was around today, he probably would have said, well, that's fashionable. No, the reason why it was so expensive, he told me, because this suit was made by a blind tailor. Therefore, so the truth is that no one's going to buy you that suit for $25,000 or even for $5. That suit won't work. But the parable is that God rewards us that way. God doesn't reward us based upon what we achieve, but based upon our efforts, what we put in. That's what the Gemara means, that with that passage of Talmud means we work and we get rewarded. What that means is that Hashem rewards us based upon our efforts. When you give of yourself for something, that is valued and that has an impact. So the question though is what is the way to challenge our children that they should actually want to make that effort, to challenge themselves, that they really should give them themselves. And that means a really important gift for a child to have, to be able to control themselves and not to give in and to overcome their whims and overcome their instincts and to do the right. The biggest gift beyond their borders, and that really is something that will help them become well-adjusted and successful in life. The question is that to a child. You want them to be able to give. You want them to be able to challenge themselves. So what do you do? So, and the truth is, it's not just about challenging yourself. Is not just something that's positive. Meaning, it's not just something that will help you when you are eventually, inevitably challenged in life. But if you don't grow, life is like a mountain. Everyone has like an ambition. If your ambition is not to grow in your Yiddishkeit, in your Torah, and your mitzvahs, your ambition is going to be somewhere else. If life's like a mountain, if you're not climbing, you're falling. So the question is, how do we give our children that kind of ambition to challenge themselves to go beyond? And what's the answer?
Tiger parenting?
No, don't do that. There was a I read. She was in terrible pain. She was having an operation. I don't know exactly what it was. I just saw the Rebbe's response to her. She wrote to the Rebbe that she was successful in convincing her doctor to put on tefillin. She is being operated on, and she told her doctor how precious it is to put on tefillin. And the doctor, and she writes this to the Rebbe, like, the good news, I got the doctor to put on tefillin. The Rebbe said, you didn't write the main thing. The main thing that you accomplished is you got the doctor to meet a chassid. In other words, the Rebbe is telling this girl, you got this doctor to get a whole different perspective on life by meeting you. It wasn't just that he put on tefillin, it was just a simple thing that he did. But the fact that he came someone like you, who is going through such pain, and yet you're thinking about, how can I help this person come closer to Hashem, do a mitzvah? That's the biggest impact. The one action that can't measure that. But more than that is the fact that he met you. It was far beyond the actual mitzvah that was done. So we want our kids to give, but what do we do? So how do we do this? So actually Hillel himself tells us how to do this with the menorah. What does Hillel say? On the first night of Hanukkah, you light one candle. The second night of Hanukkah, you light 2 candles. What is Hillel telling us? First of all, he's telling us wax on, wax off, right? He's telling us one step at a time. Okay, and that's an 80s joke. I guess no one knows what about that is. Okay, very good. He's telling us that you can't go from 1 to 100. You can't just jump to the highest level. You have to go step by step. 1 to 2 to 3. That's the first thing he's telling us. But he's also telling us something deeper. He is telling us that your goal is, when educating your child, is to give your child a different picture of themselves. On the first, how many candles do we light? 1. But what do you use to light that 1 candle? You use a menorah of candles. The menorah has 8 candles on the first night too. You only light 1, but you're giving you're lighting that 1 candle in a menorah of 8 candles, which means that even though you're making 1 step, you know you're going somewhere. You know you're going to perfection. You're going to get all the way to 8 candles, even though you're only doing 1 of them right now. You know, when you go to the Rebbe actually asks you questions about learning, and they know this kid is not into learning at all. So, you know, you really should get ready before this audience. And he's like, oh no. He goes home, he says, Dad, I don't feel well. And his father's like, what do you mean you don't feel well? I don't feel well, and I think you should get that blessing from me, from the Rebbe. It's very important, but I'm not going to go with you because, actually, it was his grandfather. His grandfather wanted to take him to the Rebbe. I'm not going to go with you, but it's a really important thing. So you just go. And his grandfather will not give in. He says, you're coming with me. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. We're going to go to the Rebbe. They come to the Rebbe. I mean, this kid does not learn anything, and he's not into learning at all. And the Rebbe meets his child, and sure enough, the Rebbe asks him a question on learning. What did the Rebbe ask him? The Rebbe asked him the only Mishnah that he ever learned. Why do you know this Mishnah? Because he got a punishment the month before because he didn't know what book they were learning. So he had to learn this one Mishnah really, really well. So the Rebbe asked him a question on that Mishnah. And he knew the answer. I've asked him a second question, a third question. And then he knew each answer. It's incredible. And his grandfather's so excited. He picks him up and he hugs him. And he said, I knew that you could do it, but I didn't know you were going to become one of the leaders of the Jewish people. It was amazing. And so you look at the story different ways. One way of looking at the story is that the Rebbe has divine inspiration. He protected the kid's honor. Such love for this child. But there's something else. The Rebbe told the child by these questions, why do you think you're not successful in Yiddishkeit? Why do you think you're not successful in learning Torah? I'll show you what you are successful. The Rebbe managed to give this child a different picture of himself. You think you can't do it? You could do it. You're number one when it comes to playing soccer. You're number one. You're the first kid up when the family goes on a trip. You're the kid who has the great ideas. So why do you think that you can't connect to your study of Torah? I'll show you could do it. That wasn't just being kind to him. That was giving the child a different picture of himself. We see this in Hillel's life also. The first story, I'm sure you've all heard, but there's actually 3 stories in the Talmud of non-Jews that came to Hillel that want him to convert. One non-Jew comes to Hillel and says to him, teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot, right? You heard about that guy, right? So what did Hillel say? Hillel says to him, what's hateful unto you, don't do to anybody else. The rest is commentary. Another non-Jew came to Hillel. And this non-Jew said to Hillel, teach me the whole Torah because I want to convert. Why do I want to convert? Because I want to become like the Kohen Gadol. I want to enter the Holy of Holies. I want to be the guy. I want to be the MVP of the Jewish people. I want to go into the Holy of Holies. Hillel's like, come, study Torah. And he starts studying Torah, and he studies Genesis, and he studies Exodus. He gets up to the verse, and the stranger who shall enter the Holy of Holies shall die. Whoops. Hillel, didn't you tell me I could be the Kohen Gadol? And here it says I'm going to die. So Hillel says, well, actually, you got something even better than entering the Holy of Holies is studying Torah, because it says in the Torah, it's more precious than diamonds. The word diamond means inside. More precious than going all the way inside into the Holy of Holies is studying Torah, and that really worked very well. Fine. The guy was satisfied, he became Jewish. There's a third story. Third story of a man came to Hillel and says, Hillel, I want to become Jewish, teach me the whole Torah, but I only want to learn the real Torah. What do you mean the real Torah? I only want to learn the written Torah. The written Torah, not the oral Torah. Not the oral Torah. Why not? Because the oral Torah is all made up by your rabbis. The oral Torah is just a made up thing, and I don't want to learn that, but I want to learn the real Torah, the written Torah. So Hillel's like, okay, we'll do that. Here's class 1. Our first class is, this is an aleph, this is a bet, study hard and come back tomorrow. Okay, this is an aleph, this is a bet, this is an aleph. I get it. Okay, I get it. Comes back the next day. Hillel's like, okay, what's this? This is an aleph. He says, no, that's a bet. What do you mean? Yes, I studied all night. I reviewed. I know this is an aleph. This is an aleph. It's not a bet. Hillel says, 1 second. How do you know how to read that letter? Who told you? You did. I told you orally. And that you only know how to read the words of the Torah because of an oral tradition, how to read the words. You can't accept the written tradition without an oral tradition of how to read the words. So it doesn't make sense what you're saying, just accept the written Torah, not the oral Torah, because without the oral tradition, you can't even know how to read the words. So similarly, to know what the words mean, you have to have the tradition as well. That worked too. That guy converted to Judaism as well. Those 3 same non-Jews, before coming to Hillel, went to Shammai. What did Shammai do to each of these people, Shammai kicked them out. You guys are crazy. The whole Torah on 1 foot. You want to be the Kohen Gadol? You Meshuggah? You want to only learn the written Torah? You think I'm making stuff up? Shammai sent them flying. What was the difference between Shammai and Hillel? What was the difference between them? Shammai was the mean guy and Hillel was the nice guy. What was the difference? Shammai was an honest guy. Shammai was a truthful guy. Shammai says these guys are Meshuggahim. They don't belong. They're saying these crazy things. This guy wants to be the MVP of the Jewish people. This guy they don't belong. What did Hillel say? Hillel had a different perspective. What was his perspective? His perspective was that you present to the student what they can become, and that's who they're going to be. You see something in that student, and that is who the student will be. Yes, it's true on the surface they had all these kind of crazy things in them, but Hillel said, I see deeper than that. I see their potential in them. I see that there's something in them. In other words, the relationship of the educator to the student is what sets the results. And that's the reason why the Torah actually praises Noach so much. Why did Noah get so many praise? More than anyone else in the Torah, Noach got praised so much. Why did he get praised so much? More than Moshe, more than Aaron. The guy who gets the most praise in the whole Bible is Noach. Why? Was he so great? Was he greater than Moshe, greater than Shmuel, greater than Aaron? He needed it. By him getting praised by Hashem said, you're the guy, you're the tzaddik, you're the one. He felt it. I'm the one. I'm the tzaddik. It's an incredible story. I'm sure I shared it with you at least 1 million times, but I have to share it with you again because it's such a good story. The story is that there was a teacher who met his teacher at a wedding. And he told his teacher, you know why I became a teacher? It's because of you. You're such an incredible teacher. I became a teacher because of you. What's so incredible about me? I want to tell you, one time I was a kid, I was in second grade, and I stole someone's watch. So what did you do when I stole the watch? He said, everyone go against the wall. Everyone go against the wall. And the Yetzer Hara convinced someone, it's not the child's fault, but the Yetzer Hara convinced someone to steal and take someone else's watch. So everyone closed their eyes. It was no Jewish child did this, but the Yetzer Hara made this happen. So I'm going to take the watch out of the child's pocket and return it to the rightful owner. But everyone closed their eyes. And everyone went against the wall. We closed our eyes. And you found the watch in my pocket and you gave it to the other kid. And then you told us to open our eyes. And I was expecting by recess, or the next day, or the next week, or the next month, that you're going to criticize me and tell me you're a thief. How'd you steal? And you didn't. You never said anything to me. Isn't that? And that really touched me. You believed in me. You saw me. You didn't think I was a thief. And even though I did that, you saw beyond that. That's what really touched me. So you remember me, right? Because actually, I don't remember you. What I mean? Don't you remember the kid who stole the watch? Yeah, I remember that story. So how come you don't remember me? He says, when I was looking through your pockets, my eyes were closed too. I also didn't see you. I didn't know either. Understand what's going on? That's what a child receives from someone who believes in them. It's you do want the child to challenge themselves, but you have to do it in the way of Bais Hillel. Bais Hillel is step by step, a small, realistic step, and that comes, the child wants to make that step because of your belief in them, because of the possible reward you're going to give them. But it's not by just expecting perfection. It's not our way. It's by Bais Hillel, Meisav HaHilach, day after day. That's what gives a child a reason. He wants to do more. He wants to be who you see in him. He wants to be that guy. So I wanted to share today. Any questions, comments, criticism, tomatoes, cucumbers?
Just to clarify, the motivation is that you believe in him?
Yeah. Some stuff too to that. You don't have to just have believing in him. You can also give him fruity pebbles and whatever works for that child. But that's a big. And also you're realistic and you give the child something that's tangible. They could actually work for. That's not beyond them. Since we have a few more minutes, I'm just going to share with you a couple of more things that we should take from Hanukkah. There's actually many lessons we learned from the menorah. Number one is the menorah is a unique mitzvah. Okay, you guys get to this mitzvah every week. Us men don't get to do that often. Every mitzvah brings light to the world in a tangible way. But we don't realize that. The only mitzvah we see that it actually brings light to the world is the mitzvah of Shabbos candles, the mitzvah of Hanukkah. It's a lesson for all mitzvahs that something's happening. The Chafetz Chaim once said that the foundation of all foundations of Yiddishkeit, the Rambam says there's 13 foundations of Yiddishkeit, right? Most important of all 13 principles of Yiddishkeit. Which one's most important? 13 principles of Judaism. Which one is the most important? Can everyone answer at once? Come on. Believing in Hashem, right? That's what I was guessed too. But the Chafetz Chaim says no. The belief in the coming of Mashiach. Why? Because belief in the coming of Mashiach means that all the stuff you're doing does something. It does something. When you said a bracha, it did something. It made a change. It made a change to you. It made a change to the world. You said a bracha, something happened. So that's what the menorah teaches us, that when you do a mitzvah, something happens. Another incredible thing we see about the menorah is, this is mamish incredible. When you light the menorah when it starts to get dark. When it starts to get dark, what does the Jew do? He says, it's time to light the menorah. He doesn't say, it's sad, it's dark. Darkness means challenge. God hides his face in your life. So what do you say to yourself when that happens? Thank you, Hashem, for reaching this occasion. What an incredible opportunity Hashem has given me. I have a chance to now do something about this darkness because Hashem gave it to me in my court. In other words, when the Jew looks at darkness as Hashem throwing them a ball that they are supposed to hit, they're supposed to make an impact in the world. Instead of looking at darkness as like down and sad and bitter and bad, a Jew sees, it's dark. It's time to light the menorah. Here's where I'm supposed to give light. The Jew sees this challenge as what it is. The Jew doesn't see difficulty as failure. He sees, on the contrary, it's an invitation to do something. The third lesson from there is you can see, as I mentioned before with Hillel, visibly every day doing more. That there's a consistent growth. Another lesson is an incredible lesson. A lot of people mean well and they try to do outreach to other people and they try to reach out and they share mitzvahs with other people, but it's always with an inward thrust, which means come to our shul and come hear our prayers in our synagogue. Come to my house for the Shabbos meal. It's all about bringing the person inside. But not everyone's ready to go inside. Some people don't want to go anywhere. So the idea of the menorah is the menorah's light is to the outside, which means that you're giving someone something where they are. My lady, and this lady comes by, and she's driving her car, and she says, "Hey, are you a rabbi?" "Yeah." "I've seen you around, right?" I'm like, "Well, but my brother-in-law was down the block. Maybe you've seen him." She says, "Okay, I don't know." I say, "Are you Jewish?" She says, "Doesn't matter." "Why doesn't it matter?" "Doesn't matter, but family here." So what do you mean you don't have family? Abraham and Sarah were our parents. You're my sister. I'm your brother. It's not true. It is true. It's not true. It is true. So, come to a Shabbos meal. Okay. She came to the Shabbos meal. But she's not coming again for a long time. Whatever. It doesn't have to be about coming inside. It's about giving the person light where they are. It's about Hashem puts us in different places to give another person. It's not about seeing the change. It's about giving them something where they are. I don't want you to confuse this with another principle of chassidus, which is don't lower the Torah to someone else's standards. Bring them to Torah. You don't. Someone asked the previous Rebbe, how come you don't do other Jewish groups have this thing where they let's say they make a dance between boys and girls to promote Judaism. How come the previous Rebbe so into outreach? How come he doesn't do something similar? And they gave the previous Rebbe the example and said, isn't it a good idea when you see a fire to use anything you can to put out the fire? So who cares if it's a pure water, not pure water? There's a fire going on. People are assimilating like crazy. Use anything you can. So the previous Rebbe said that's correct if you're using water. What if you're using gasoline? Gasoline is not going to put out a fire. On the contrary, it's going to make the fire worse. So in a similar way, if you give something to someone which isn't real, it's not going to have the desired effect. It'll have the opposite effect. So therefore, spreading Yiddishkeit means spreading authentic Yiddishkeit. But at the same time, it doesn't mean lowering us. Doesn't mean waiting for them to go to you. It means giving them something where they are. And one last lesson we learned from Menorah is that the Menorah. One second. Buffering. Hold on. There's a letter that wrote to all the Jewish people, the things we're supposed to take from the Menorah. The Menorah is lit day by day, as I mentioned before, consistent growth, adding more each day, not to be satisfied the day before. And that's the basic idea. Any questions, comment? Yes?
I read that on the fifth night, the fifth night can never be Shabbos.
Right.
Why is that?
So, if you remind me, I'll send you a link. It's an amazing story about that. It's a long story. But basically, there is a tradition among Chabad Chassidim that we make the fifth night of Hanukkah Big Yantif. And why do we make the fifth night of Hanukkah Big Yantif? Because the fifth night of Hanukkah has a natural darkness to it. It can never be on Shabbos. And that's the whole power of a Jew, to transform darkness to light. And so the fifth night of Hanukkah, it's like a little bit of a paradox. It's the darkest, but it's the brightest. And that's what we make a big thing of the fifth night of Hanukkah. It's an incredible miracle story. The Rebbe shared this Torah, and I'll send you it's a very long, incredible story. I just want to share with you one more story and let you guys go. It's a crazy story. There was a woman who wanted to get engaged, to get married with someone from New York. And she was supposed to leave England, go to New York, and to finalize her engagement. And I heard the story from my brother-in-law, heard the story from her brother. This guy her brother is a professor in NYU, and she's about to get on this plane, the Pan Am plane in 1988, December 20th. And what happens is that she decides before going on the flight, she's going to tell Rabbi Safran in England what she's planning to do. Rabbi Safran says it's such a big move, finalizing an engagement, traveling to New York for this purpose, ask Rebbe for bracha. So she went to the Rebbe. So Rabbi Safran said, "I'll write the Rebbe for you." He writes a letter to the Rebbe, sends a fax, and the Rebbe says, "It's a good idea, go on a later flight." What flight was that? Pan Am 103. That was a flight. The Pan Am, those of us who are not familiar, It used to be something called Pan Am. It was an airline. And Pan Am 103 was a flight that, unfortunately, was terrorists bombed that flight right, if you think, within a minute of it taking off. And her, we don't realize the miracles that happen all around us, but all the time, a Jew is one sheep among 70 wolves, and everyone's so concerned about, things going on in the world. But you have to think good and it'll be good. Think how we're in Hashem's hands, and time of miracles, heading towards the Bais Mashiach, and it's l'chaim.